And Kathleen might join us a little bit later. Oh, we know for sure. All right. Got it.
Thank you, Zoom.
You can't sneak it in on us now, John. We know. Okay. So I sent out the meeting or the minutes from last meeting, which was way back in March, to all of you. And so unless there's any questions or anything to change, we can go ahead and adopt the agenda and approval of minutes. So just let me know if you have any changes you want to make to either of those. Nope. Good. Okay. We'll say approved by acclamation. Okay, so my plan for tonight was to just kind of go through this parks checklist, and I'm going to share it on my screen so we can all look at it together. Okay, let's see here. Let me find it. There. Can you all see that now? You seeing it? Okay.
Yes, I can see it. Yeah.
Okay, so I was just going to kind of talk through it. So if we get to your park, so the first one is Lake Trail, and kind of just go over what you said. So Jeannie, this one's yours. So just kind of talk through it, what you saw, and then, yeah, I can adjust. If we have any questions, we'll ask them, and then I can make any changes or adjustments if we want to, or if someone's like, oh, that doesn't make sense to me, what you wrote or whatever. So we can make any adjustments. And then this document is, you know, our document of record, and wherever, you know, whatever needs to be updated or addressed or whatever can be done. I will say one blanket statement. A lot of the parks that I went to are surrounded by homes, like on 2 to 3 sides, sometimes 4 actually. And I noticed that once you're inside the park, it's really hard to tell where park property ends and Sudden Valley, or in private, where park property ends and private property begins. And so I don't really know how to address that, and like without, you know, making something like some sort of fence or whatever. But I don't know. I know that Glenn talked about having like a land use manager, and I don't know if that's something that they had done before once that person is on board, and if that's something they could look at. But we've talked about this before. You notice it on both sides where people don't really know that it's a park, and so it gets kind of encroached on by neighbors, and then times when people in the park are not respectful of private property that's adjacent to the park. So I think just in general, that's something that we need to get. Same with trails. I know there's a lot of trails that go, I would say, almost uncomfortably close to people's homes. But that's how Sudden Valley was built, with these very small greenways in certain places, right-of-ways, you know, for crossing through and interconnectivity. So anyway, that's just kind of a general comment of something I noticed a lot, is that these neighborhood parks are great, but it's also kind of tricky to tell what the park is and what isn't. So, okay. So Jeannie, Lake Trail Park. The first
okay. These parks in Gate 1, for the most part, look exactly like the description from last year. So there really isn't anything to change. They're just the same. Lake Trail Park, the only access is a walking path, and there's 0 parking. So it's pretty impossible to go if you're a family or with children, because there's no place to park. It's beautiful. It's got a big shore along the water. If people could get there, it'd be awesome, because it's just like, it's probably 4 times the size along the water as Sofield Park. Oh, wow. But there's no access. And from what I see, the access, there's the little trail, and then everything else is private property. So I don't think, you know, I don't think, unless the owners agree to an easement, and I don't think they will, because it's pretty sweet the way they have it. So Marina Park is kind of all good. I was talking about North Point Park there. Not Lake Trail Park.
Oh, North Point. You're right.
Yeah, go ahead.
there's really no parking. That's hard. There is one access point, and then I think along the other end, there's like a utility gravel road that people could walk down that without walking on private property. So there is some access to those two parks, but you're right. It's very,
It's walking access, and
right,
which
it's
is
walking access, right?
which is, and it's not. There's a nice sign up. You know, it's not hidden or anything. It's just that I just imagine myself with children. You have stuff. You take stuff to the water with you, right? So, and then also you have to walk from some other parking spot, and there isn't any other place nearby. So,
Yeah,
that's that park. And Marina Park, I think everyone knows it's pretty much looks just the same as last year, and the things that are in progress are in progress, you know, like maybe a fence to mark off the dog park area.
yeah. Can I pause real quick? Sam, do you have any kind of status update on that, or is that just still working through on the fence at Marina Park?
Yeah, no status update on that. I'd have to ask, but nothing to report.
Okay. It's just getting to busy season. It's one of those things that, I don't know, throughout most of the winter, it's mostly just a dog park, and then it gets super busy all of a sudden, and then the incidents and whatever start cropping up, and that's a tricky time to try to install a fence when it's super busy all the time. So
Yeah.
okay.
Lake Trail Park, backing up to Lake Trail Park, is it's just a little swath of open space between the homes. There's no parking. It's not maintained. It's not supposed to be maintained, I don't think. There's one little table in there that I think the neighbors have put in, but there's also no parking to it. So you got to walk, and I can imagine some 10-year-old kids going there to just play, you know, but there isn't anything else there. So
Sofield has a few parking spots, doesn't it? Right by the.
yeah, now Sofield, this is what I
Okay.
wanted to tell you, because this has been a concern of the neighbors around here.
Mhm.
Sofield Park has 5 or 6 parking spots, and Sofield is a pretty well-used park. And here's the thing I wanted to make sure I say with someone around who can do something about it. You know, the logs, you pull up your car up to a log that's there to mark off the where you're supposed to park. The very first one, and I put in pictures if you go down to the next page, the very first one, the support pieces underneath it are they're not flat, they've lifted up and they're at an angle. So if a car were to come bump that log, it would roll. And if there's a kid sitting on it, they'd be right under it. So this is something I really think they need to address. They can just straighten these things out or something. But this is a really nice place to sit and look at the lake. And so people use it a lot for that. And you can kind of see, I tried to take good pictures, but you can see on this bottom picture that the thing is just lifted up and it's angling down. Do you see does it make sense what I'm saying to you? Okay,
Yeah,
so I think that needs to be taken care of.
Yeah.
And then I am suggesting some speed bumps. And one little thing, they have volleyball, they have 2 pools on tires out here. And last year we got a volleyball net from Sudden Valley, and it was used a lot. And then the wind kind of tore it up. But if we could get another one of those, that'd be great.
Okay. For some reason, my not going down. Where'd it go? Is there a way to page down? Like the screen share is interfering with my. Let's see. Guess it needs words. Ah. Okay, so I did PM Beach. It didn't have any, let me look at this real quick. So there aren't any speed signs or whatever, but once you kind of come around that corner, you have to go fairly slow. So I just kind of said it's set back from the main park. So, you know, there's no real traffic signage there. It did look pretty much the same. I think this was on it from last year too, but the volleyball net there too is pretty beat up. I think it's the same one that's been there for a few years, so it's probably time for a new one. And they're set so close toward the trees over there, and I don't know if they just do that in the winter to kind of protect them, but I think if they could get moved out a little bit, and that would be helpful. And my question was, is the fireplace at the pavilion functional? Can that be used? It looks a little bit like one side of the grate is off. I don't know. It was just a question. Is that usable or not? And if not, we should have a sign that says it's not. Then I put on there, so kind of beyond the, not going up Picnic Point Trail, but beyond the pavilion and beyond the grassy area is this little trail out to what I call Secret Beach. Like almost every single one of our beach parks has a little secret area kind of off beyond it. And there's a little trail there that goes there, but if we kind of limbed it a little bit, it'd just be easier to get out there. Or maybe we don't want to, because once I got there, I saw some evidence of like campfires there. There's tables out there, so it has, I mean, even cement tables. So it has been kind of an acknowledged part of the park for a while. But I did see a few evidences of campfires, and so I think it would be helpful. I mean, I think people are going to go there anyway. So I think a no fires sign would be helpful there. Then AM Beach, there were no changes except the chess set I took, and I put it in here, and I can email it if we need a better resolution one, but I set the pieces up just so that people could see it. And I think we should include in the parks master plan, put one that has the pieces set up. But I noted this to you, Sam, a little while ago, that the latches on those benches where they store the pieces, those are broken. And so they need to be fixed so the pieces can't be taken out and destroyed or whatever. And I thought it would be good to have a sign on them that says how to get the keys. So if people wanted to use the chess set, and maybe something that it was donated by a Eagle Scout or something, just I thought it might help people be sure to be respectful if they knew that it was made by someone like that. There's hazard trees over the beach area, which I know we've talked about. Sam, I don't know what, if anything, we can do about it, but it's just something to be conscious of, because there's several still up that are leaning. And then I put in there that the restrooms look clean, but I think that it's time for the interior to be either pressure washed or painted, the walls inside of the restrooms. But they looked pretty clean when I went. Sometimes spiders take over the winter, and I didn't see any of that, so that was good. Okay. So Jeannie, Lake Louise Park for you. Oh, you there, Jeannie?
I'm sorry, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Do you want to talk?
Lake Louise Park is really, everything's just the same as the description. I didn't really, the only tiny thing I saw was at the time, on the day I was there, the dogs on leash sign was down, but yeah, I don't know, it might be fixed already. It's been a little while.
Yeah. I'm trying to think when the last time was I was on the trail, but yeah.
I don't know if they're going to continue the one-way thing.
Yeah.
But people are going both ways now. I don't know if the intention is for it to continue to be one way or if that was just for COVID.
It was implemented just for COVID because I recall when we made that decision and it was to just help spacing or attempt
Okay.
to help spacing.
Then I don't think there's anything.
Okay, then the recreation corridor, Megan.
Sure. So coming off the large parking lot, I mean, there's really no speed signs or anything in there, but the way it doesn't really need it with how it is at the barns there. We recently added playground equipment to the park, so I don't think that's anything pressing or needing to happen right now. I did only spot 2 garbage cans, and the description currently lists 3, but I thought maybe one was perhaps a seasonal one that just hasn't been brought back in for when people are more so picnicking, or when I know when we used to have the cafe and there's more people eating around there. Sorry, 1 second.
Oh, you're still on mute, Megan.
Still muted.
Sorry, it like switched my screens and then the mute was gone, and a small child was coming in my room. Okay, so the only thing I noticed that, Sam, you're probably already aware of is that metal slide that's wrapped with caution tape right now. So I'm not really sure what's happening with there. It looked like the actual slide part itself was missing and just the stairs were sitting there where the slide used to be. So I haven't been down, recently since I went and looked, but perhaps something has been done with it already. I'm not sure what happened with that.
Yeah, the slide got fixed the other week. It was welded improperly, so they brought it back to the manufacturer, or someone who was welding it for them, and it got fixed. And then it got taken out again prior to that because of some cracks. So it's back now and it's working and it's in good condition.
Awesome. Sometimes those old metal ones are just so fun for the kids to zoom down. They're faster and more fun than the plastic ones that are new, I think. But anyway, well, thanks to the parks guys for getting that all fixed up, and thanks to you. I did notice I didn't know if I was supposed to go look in there, but I did peek in at the small dog park area that's in there as well. And there is still some damage to the fence. I know the fence was kind of put in with, I think it was an Eagle Scout project as well. And so it's just got kind of the hog wire stuff attached to fence posts. And so there's a couple areas where it's pulled off and kind of ripped, and it was zip tied onto the posts a couple of years ago, but still it was a pretty temporary fix, it looked like, and it's still pulling off. I think maybe some kids or something try to kind of climb up on the fence to get up in the tree is what it sort of looks like to me. But if there's any time for the parks guys to take a look, if there's any more lasting fix besides maybe the zip ties, if they can get some staples into the fence post or add a little bit more wire in there or something, that would probably be good. And that's pretty much all I noticed there.
So I know, like, I think originally that was kind of a trial area and then they expanded it. And I know from because we have in our backyard one of those hog wire fences too, but the owner, previous owner, when he put it in, didn't buy the most expensive, because I'm sure it's kind of expensive, but it bends and it pulls away and stuff. But if you get the more expensive stuff, it will hold a little bit better. So even if you had the random kid trying to climb, it wouldn't bend and pull. And I was just going to say about the trash can. Last year, I think we just, for the spring, summer season, maybe a little into fall, there's just one of those larger plastic ones that was set right outside of the community center. And then in the winter, it wasn't necessary anymore, but it was for people picnicking and stuff. So it was just one of those bigger ones just right outside the door of the community center.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it's a supply and demand issue too. If they aren't filling up the trash cans that are there, why put a third one out, or if they're overflowing, then we probably need to get a better solution there.
Right. Yeah, because we used to have 2 right there, like across the little pathway. And then for whatever reason, it was determined that they should be removed. I don't know if they were just old and damaged or whatever, but just a larger plastic one right outside the door seemed to work fine. Mm-hmm. And it was easy to empty and all that. So,
well, with the parks being closed due to COVID, the playgrounds and everything, I'm sure there was lots of trash produced too.
Yeah. Okay. So did you have anything else on? Okay. So I did Cascade. So I put in there just the changes from last time. So there's now one parking space and one picnic table, which I'm not even sure why we decided to like list the number, but I think we were trying to determine like if there were still old cement tables and what needed to be switched out when we originally did this. So anyway, I don't know if we just want to switch to like there are some tables or if we want to be real specific about the number, but there's one picnic table now and there's at least one parking space. This is another one where I said we need better designation of the park versus private property. I did notice that there is, so this one was recently renovated, but I noticed there is, it looks like there is additional space if we ever wanted to expand this one. I'm not saying there's a need necessarily right now, but I think there would be space for additional features in it. And then I think the website or the master plan needs to be updated with new photos of the completed equipment. It showed it just in progress before. And we need better and more visible signage for this park. There's one sign that denotes that it's Cascade Park, but it's down low and behind the mailboxes. So you can't really see it. And the way that it is behind the mailboxes and surrounded by the houses, it does, especially when it was the older wooden swing set, it really did look like it was almost someone's backyard. And so I think it could get more usage if people kind of felt comfortable knowing, you know, that they were on Park Sudden Valley Common area. Okay. And then Megan, Harborview.
Yeah, so Harborview Park seems just kind of like a little trail down to some green space is what it seems like. There is a sign that says the name of the park there. There's no speed bumps or anything around. There's speed signs. It's not anything that's maintained or mowed or anything like that. There are a couple of stairs that go down into there, and I just did note that they're pretty decrepit. You know, I think the parts you actually walk on are fine, but one side kind of has a decrepit railing, and on the other side looks like the railing went missing sometime over the years. So I don't know if maybe park maintenance just wants to take a peek and make sure the safety on that is all looking okay for those set of stairs. Maybe the one with the missing rail could just have a look taken at it. But otherwise, I mean, my kids and I walked up and down fine and we were okay. So just something to take note of. There are some debris from branches and things that are down. And I know we're doing, you know, the Firewise wood chipping and stuff right now. I don't know if there's any volunteer effort or a Sudden Valley coordination that can happen to maybe visit some of our parks and green spaces and collect up fallen debris and branches and things that we could get chipped during that Firewise time. That would be, there's just an opportunity there. I feel like in more of the green space sort of areas to do that. And this would be one of them.
I'm going to add that in there where you have opportunities. I'm just going to say future volunteer effort or branch clean up Firewise. Okay.
All right, and then Hendrick Park is also pretty much a big green space. And from the road on Harborview, there are some signs lower down on the road, but it's more about, there's a school bus stop area. So there's some like caution, like that picture of the kids type signs down there. It's not a park that I think brings much foot traffic into. It's kind of just an open green space. From the road, it's really marshy and wet in the first section. It actually was going to have a mailbox cluster put there, but then it was found out to be like a wetland area. So they couldn't do that when the mailboxes were installed. But the park does go way back from the road, more so than you'd ever know by looking from the road. But I have no idea where park starts and people's properties begins. So the start and end of that, same as you were saying, Karen. I think it would be cool to have a trail go back through there. There's some like deer trails and things, but it is pretty marshy and wet a lot of the time of the year. But if there was a place we were looking to add, you know, another sort of human trail, I think that would be a great opportunity just because it's a much bigger space than it looks like and kind of does go around way more far back from the road. But as somebody kind of traipsing around in there in your boots, I have no idea, you know, where is the houses land that are around it and where is the actual park land there. But it's a neat space to explore around in. I would never recommend like a playground or something. Just keeping that green space is good.
There was some talk once upon a time, but I don't know if it's too marshy, I don't know, but just like putting like a bench in that grassy area, you know, or like a, I don't know.
Yeah,
pond or
like a
something.
sitting area or something, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a nice little area. And I know prior to the special assessment for parks maintenance being passed, it was like rarely mowed when there wasn't dedicated staffing. So it was just kind of like wild, tall field grass that would be there. And then it would look a little bit like an eyesore because it looked like somebody just hadn't mowed the grass that needed to be mowed, you know. But having it maintained and the grass cut is a lot nicer, I think, for the neighbors that live around there. And then it could be used to go have a picnic in it or something in the drier weather. But yeah, a picnic table or something wouldn't be bad.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, then Lost Fork.
Yeah, not much to report on Lost Fork. It's pretty much the same as what it's described as in the park plan. Could not find a park name sign. Sorry, excuse my typo. So I don't know if it's important to have that there or not, but yeah, there wasn't anything denoting that I could see the name of the park from the road.
Well, to me, this kind of goes with just in general, this idea of what's common area, what's private property. I would really love to just have an overall better plan about how we designate between the two and how we sign, sign our parks, because ideally we would have consistent and prevalent signage at all of them. So people knew this, this is common space that you can use. We do hear from time to time just issues that come up where people believe, and I might talk to one later, what they think is their property is actually green space or park property, and vice versa. We've had issues where we had a trail going across someone's land and it had been used for years, but when we really went and looked at it and surveyed, we're like, oh yeah, you're right, that's not, and we had to fix it. So that would be
nice. I mean, if we're taking a look at something kind of comprehensive as far as signage, it would be cool to have some sort of a consistent visual representation on the sign. So like if you had the park name and then there's a symbol for a playground and a symbol for this kind of like a tree for more of a green space, or a symbol for a bathroom, something that people can look and say, oh, this is what I'm going to find here in this park.
Yeah. Yeah, right. I think that would be good.
And Maple Leaf. Oh, you're saying so?
I was just going to say, I also wonder, and I am not spatially aware like this, but if you had like a picture of the shape of the park, you know what I mean? To like of like, this is what it looks like, or it's this long space here. I don't know if that would be helpful or not. For me, I'd probably be like, I don't know what that means. Like, it's not helpful. Like my husband will always go and look at a map before we go on a trail, and it will make sense to him and he'll get his bearings, and it doesn't help me at all. But
yeah. Visual spatial thinking is not my strong suit either. But it is nice to be able to have those maps. And, you go to the county parks, and a lot of times, like the trail systems and stuff have that there, a little like, you are here, and then you can kind of see the scope of how big it is or what direction it goes. And most of our parks are small enough, you probably wouldn't need that, but some of them are big, and so it'd be helpful, like Beaver Ridge, that would be helpful. Okay, so with Maple Leaf, that was renovated very recently, adding in pea gravel and fixing the borders. It's pretty much as described on the park's master plan. There are a couple of signs coming up to the park from sort of the downhill direction. So when you're coming up the hill, they're kind of a weird design, like they're sort of small and high up on a post, and they say, caution, park area, children on road. And so there's two of those coming up. And then if you're approaching from the other side coming toward the park, there is one speed bump there. Last year we did ask about, because there's a lot of times cars that will kind of speed going up the hill and just come right around the park that direction. And staff at the time said, as a rule, they weren't going to be adding any more speed bumps in anywhere in Sudden Valley. Just because, well, for one, I think they cost like $5,000 or $10,000 a piece. And then for two, I think they were looking at City of Bellingham's use of speed bumps and how they are sometimes not as helpful as they are more of a detriment if cars kind of quickly going over them and then getting damaged and suing the city, or not really forcing people to slow down. They just question the effectiveness. And so staff at that time really was not willing to consider adding in another speed bump from the other direction. So I don't know. I don't think we have the money for that in the parks budget. I think that's some other pot of money that would do something like that. But we can certainly, I think, keep saying we recommend that, if we feel like that's a good thing in areas where people are reporting that there's, kids in the road and people are driving too fast and that kind of stuff. But there is one on one side, not the other side. And there's benches and the picnic table and everything that looks just the same as the plan.
Okay. And then North Trail.
So to be perfectly honest, I don't know if I even found where North Trail was. I looked very carefully and I read the description that was on the website, and it was not anything I could identify. I will say there was sort of a strange situation coming up in my car too. I put a little picture there. I don't know if you can see, but the end of the road there, whoever the homeowner is, has blocked off the road with planters and like effectively narrowed it. So it's like I in my car was like, I'm not going to drive down there. It seems like they've kind of claimed that space as their own, And so the description of where the park is located though, like was between, I think, the address of that house on the end that blocks the road, and then the next door house or something. So I know it's supposed to be right around there, but it does seem like those are kind of encroaching on the Sudden Valley Road and making like kind of elongating their driveway or the space by their house there. So I don't know if the park land is somewhere back there or if it was kind of across the street from there. But I didn't feel like I should drive my car around there and be looking around too much. So I don't know if that's a staff situation that, if they're effectively saying this is kind of, I'm claiming this land as mine and that's park land, or if that's something that needs to be looked at, or maybe the park is somewhere else. I do question, do we need, if it's a park we can't hardly really find, do we need to list that on the website? Is that just essentially should be changed to be a kind of a green space? I think it said it was wooded. So I don't know, maybe another set of eyes on that would be helpful, just because I couldn't really tell what I was looking at there.
So I remember this one from last time we did it, and that was the same situation. I do believe that, yes, it is back behind those planters. Mm-hmm. And I think Maddie was the one that eventually went and looked at it because she had her GPS and her map and all of that and staff badge, and because we had the same, I think I had it last time and I was like, oh, I'm not going back there. But that is a good question. I mean, number one is, do we need to address the road being blocked off? Are there any issues there? But if we're not going to, if we're not going to try to kind of mark it as a park or kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Deal with encroachment issues, do we just take it off the list? So.
And there's lots of just green spaces of Sudden Valley that aren't marked on any park plan. And I know there even used to be like a park called Old Stables Park that used to be listed on things and now is not listed on things, and it's just turned into a wild growth green space area that's not even listed on our parks plan anymore. So I don't know if it's kind of a very small little wooded section of things that, nobody, I don't know, like, do we need to have it on there and be listing it? But it felt awkward going in there with the road being blocked off by that homeowner. I just didn't want to dig around in there, not having a staff badge or, just as somebody who, had my kids in the car. I was like, I don't think I'm going to go back in there and be messing around with that. So.
I wonder, I looked at this on the plat map, Megan, and I wonder if there's an entrance from, so I think it's between, it's off of, what's the road? But then Twin Flower, I think, comes around. Maybe.
So what that picture is, there's kind of a road, I think, that goes to the left just before where I took that picture. But then the road dead ends behind those planters that are blocking the road, and there's a house back there. So I don't know. It just, I wasn't able to figure it out. So Sam, I'm passing it off to you. I think this is more of a staff situation.
Yeah, I think that one is, and I think it was last time as well. And I think some of these, we've had these conversations before about various parks that there wasn't really a good way to access them without encroaching on private property. And we haven't in the last few years that I've been on it, like decommissioned any parks, but it's a conversation that we have had before is, is this worth it to keep listing this as a park if it's not really accessible?
Yeah, and there's no sign to, I mean, obviously if there was a sign, I would have found it. Oh, there it is, there's a park, but so with nothing marking it and nothing identifiable, and then, having the road kind of awkwardly blocked with those banners, it probably isn't too welcoming for anybody else who might be looking at our website trying to find, oh, I'd like to look for that park. So,
right. Yeah. Okay, I'll do Little Strawberry. This is such a cute park. I really seriously love it. We actually looked at a house near there, and I was a little sad when I went to. I'm like, oh, we don't live there. Okay, but I didn't see any speed signs or speed bumps or anything. It is kind of on a more residential more like a one-way road, but there is a trail, the Little Strawberry Falls Trail. There is a portion of it that you do have to walk on the road. So I do think some signage would be good there. On the master plan, it lists that there's a bench. I couldn't find a bench. And there's a photo. I don't know if I posted the photo. I didn't. Anyway, there's a photo on the master plan that shows the entrance from Lost Fork, but that is actually the trailhead, which is a ways from the park itself. Like you have to follow the trail for a while. So I think that should be removed, and I thought I put it on here, so I'll go in and add that in a little bit when I can find it. But take the one off that shows the trailhead parking lot and show one of them that is closer to, oh, this is it. This bottom one is actually the entrance off of Little Strawberry Lane. And I noted in here that it's a little bit overgrown, this entrance into it from Little Strawberry Lane. And so I think it'd be good to just go in there with a weed eater and just kind of maintain it a little bit better. This photo up here is a better, and on the website and on the master plan, this is kind of noted as the main entrance to the park. And there is some off-street parking. I think this is kind of a dead end or like a cul-de-sac. So there are some spaces that someone could park here, but there's no signage at all at this entrance of the park. And so it kind of looks like it's just someone's yard. Like you wouldn't really know standing there on the street that there was a pathway to a park back there. The only sign for the park itself is in it. And then this little trail sign, but you don't really know there's a park back there. It's another one of those that's surrounded by homes, and it is such a cute space. Limited parking, but there is some, and you can also park and park at the trailhead and walk a ways. But you don't know, there's only one sign for the park once you get in there, and you don't really know what's the park and what's yard. So it's one of those that you kind of go in and like, oh, I love this, but I don't know where I can go exactly without kind of getting in people's yards. So I think this is one in particular that could use just better signage at the entrances, and then maybe inside, just to kind of give people an idea of what the park space looks like. Treehouse Park is another one of those that is surrounded by homes. So this one, actually, Treehouse Park does have 15-mile-per-hour signs approaching the park from both entrances, or both sides of the entrance, which is good. And there's a children at play sign, like on the same post together on both sides of them. There weren't any speed bumps, however. The master plan lists, I think that there's no parking spots, but there actually are a few on each side of the road. So at the entrance, there's a sign, and you could park off street. And then the other side is the top of Arrowroot, which is a closed, no longer maintained road. And so you could probably fit another 3 or 4 cars along there. And honestly, I think those are Sudden Valley owned lots. And so if we ever needed to expand parking, I think that we could there. But there is some parking, so that should be updated on the master plan to show that there is some parking. Overall, the park just needs a rehab. And then I mentioned that since Arrowroot is no longer maintained, it's not super long, but it's a trail and it goes down and connects to like lower Sudden Valley Drive, which could be beneficial. Oh, I also noted in here what's different than what's on the master plan is all of the benches, tables, and trash cans have been removed from it. So there's none any longer. And then there is a narrow green belt next to 34 Rocky Ridge, and it is access into the park from the other side of the park, not where the sign is, but the other side. And I didn't want to go messing around in there. And like I said, I'm not super great at knowing exactly where, the end of somebody's property ends, but it looks like they had blocked off what would be the green space access from the other side into the trail. So it looks like that has been blocked off, and I might be misinterpreting. I didn't want to go wandering back there, but it's possible maybe you can still go around, and maybe they're just trying to keep people from coming so close to their house. I'm not sure. So that's one of those that I think it would be good to know and to maintain access from the other side, because Rocky Ridge is a loop, and so it's nice to be able to enter this park from both sides of it. And then the slide has been, it had some issues before, and they even put a railing around, fixed the railing that was around the top, but I still think it needs a bigger landing box at the bottom. It's still fairly small, and I don't know what code is, but it seems like this slide is up fairly high, and so if you went fast out of that, a kid could go flying, and I think it needs kind of a bigger, and then to be filled with fall material. So just some attention on that landing box down there. The treehouse is still up, but the ladder has been taken down. And once upon a time, they talked about taking it down and refurbishing it, and then just putting it like on stilts on the ground, like just a little bit off of the ground, which would be really cool. It is a really cool treehouse. And then I did Gate 5 Park, which I agree we should call Tumbling Water Park. Oh, there's none. This is right inside the gate, so there's really you're just coming around a corner to get into it. But it looked similar to what it's been recently renovated too. So there was updated photos in there and a good description. I noted in here, so I think if you walk back, you can hear the creek from it. And I just wondered if the land behind that is also park or green space, if a trail down to the creek could be added into there. And this is another one where it seems like there's, not that it's necessary now, but this is the equipment at this park is geared towards younger kids, which is great. But there's more space if we wanted to add something bigger or something different in the future. I think it seems like there's enough space for that. And I think we should just start referring to this as Tumbling Water Park, because that's technically its name. Then Beaver Ridge, there's a 25-mile-per-hour sign about a quarter mile from the park. And then there's 2 speed bumps. So on either side of the park entrance, there's a few different little trail entrances onto it. And on either side, there's some speed bumps. There's no parking off of Morning Glory, but where the trail markers are. But there are 2 to 4 on Hollyview Way, which is on the other side of the park. And then there's 1 trail entrance into Beaver Ridge from Hollyview Way. I wandered around in there for a long time and probably got myself lost because I was trying to figure out how to get out without walking into somebody. So I entered from the Morning Glory side and I was trying to go out on the Hollyview side. I actually did like a whole parks walk, which was super fun, and tried to follow trails as much as I could. But I was trying to figure out how to get up the hill and out of the park. And so there's signage to go into the park. But then once you're in there, there's a bunch of trails that break off. And so Yeah, it was fun. I wandered around for a long time, but I'm like, it would be nice to have like a exit towards Holly View up this way, or this is just going to wind you in circles for another 20 minutes. So, and I think Kathleen's group, the trails group, has talked about that too, kind of developing this park as a trail system. And I think it wouldn't be like a pump track, but I think it could be used as a mountain biking area down closer to Morning Glory. There's not parking there, but Huckleberry Park isn't too far. But the bottom area is flatter. And then if you come up the top at Hollyview, there's some decent hills down there. I don't know. I'm not a mountain biker. It all seems scary to me. But I think it could be some fun trails in there. And I know people have used it for that before. And the only issue I saw, besides I think it just needs better signage, is there was this whole, I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's disgusting. It is probably 8 to 10 dog poop bags sitting on a tree stump or rock that seems to be used frequently to walk dogs, and then the bags just get left in it. So I was wondering if possibly like a trash can at the entrance on Morning Glory or something. This was right off of the Morning Glory entrance. If that could possibly help with this issue, because it's a shame. It's a really beautiful natural space. And at one time there was someone that would make little fairy houses that they'd put in around the trees. I don't know if I didn't see any this time, but it's such a cute space. So you hate to see bags all over. That's gross. So, okay. And then Jeannie, you had Creekside?
Well, I did, and I really have nothing to say about Creekside. It looks just like the description anyway, it looks just like the description, and I didn't really see anything that I thought would improve it, because it's just kind of a little open space. It's not, you know what I mean? A little natural space. It doesn't have any playground equipment or anything like that, so.
Yeah, I had always thought it had always just been a cute little open space kind of pocket park. But when I was on the board, we got an email from someone that said long ago it had been developed and had some amount of equipment in it. So I would love to see pictures of that, but I don't know. It's kind of interesting, some of the things. There are a couple of parks that I thought have always just been kind of like nothing to them, and once upon a time some of them did actually have features. So
yeah, okay, well, I guess, if it's like a project, it's like, where would that go in the list of projects already to be accomplished? So
no, I agree. I think for now it's just an open space by the creek is kind of a good for it right now. Okay, Huckleberry, there's not really any traffic or speed limit signs, but there's a school bus stop. Like there's a school bus stop near the park on Morning Glory as you're approaching it. There's also a stop sign nearby there. There's speed bumps. They're back a ways. They're in front of Beaver Ridge Park, actually. But like I said, you can kind of see Huckleberry Park. You can see the two parks from each other. This was another thing, like the description was slightly different. There was 2 trash cans, one in the park and one at the mailboxes. I think it had a different description before. The picnic tables were slightly different than what was listed, I believe. Megan, I think this was your comment from when you were there, and I noticed it too later on that the swing, they move a little bit when they're swinging. I don't know if that's fine or not, but that might be something for maintenance to check. There's still a couple of old cement picnic tables there. I don't know if that's an issue or not. One of them is right by the playground equipment, and the other one is back in the grassy field area. And I did note that the one around in the back in the field, like it could use some weed eating around that picnic table. I think I put some pictures in. Yeah, so from the playground area, you can kind of walk these little pathways, and then it opens up into a grassy play area just with nothing in it but that one cement picnic table. And then there's like some fallen trees and just really cool places to play. This is kind of a fun park for older kids. But the pathway from the playground equipment to the grassy area can get really, really muddy. And I noticed some places where they had put mulch around trees. So I was wondering if, like with all this Firewise going on, if there's extra chips, extra mulch, if they could just maybe put it along that pathway out to the grassy field, because it just gets so marshy. It would be a place to put them. Oh no, lost my spot. But I think that would help with it being so muddy. And then I just wrote that we've had ongoing issues with the blessing box. I haven't heard any lately. But yeah, Megan knows all about just some vandalism and yeah, at the park, and things getting taken out of the blessing box and just kind of, I don't know, trying to break things or open cans or whatever. So
Spraying barbecue sauce all over the place.
yeah, barbecue sauce all over the playground equipment. So I haven't heard of anything lately. So I'm hoping that it was addressed with whoever did it, and they realized, what was going on, and it won't happen. But it's just something to note. So I think that's the last one, right? Yeah. Okay. So are there any overall questions about this? I think it's a good I know takes a lot of time, but it's kind of fun to go explore different places that you might not anyway. But are there any just general questions or anything that anyone wants to bring up again that I think this really, I know Jeannie with the log at Sofield Park, but like anything you want to highlight that you think, okay, this really needs to be addressed like right away. It's not safe, or it's a big issue or whatever. If anyone wants to speak to any of that.
That's the only one I saw, but I am really concerned about it because I just,
Yeah, I think, well, I could see if that like really started rolling, that could be really bad.
Because it's big enough to really, and I watch people, a couple of us have started just telling people because there's a couple of those, and you can move down and sit on the next one over.
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe I'm sure it's not my imagination, because those things are really tilted.
Well, I bet I know what happened is because last year they got moved farther from the road a bit so that cars could fit there better and not be getting in the road when they were parking. So it probably just never got leveled, and it was just kind of moved and set down. So maybe it needs to be that those bottom parts that the log is sitting on are kind of dug down into the ground and leveled so it can be stable. Kind of what it looks like to me. Mm-hmm. So I mean, if I kind of look through all the various things, it's like anything that seems like a safety issue. Like I would hope that maintenance could get out there and look at the Huckleberry Park swing and just make sure. And because that was just me noticing, oh, there's my child swinging, is going, every time she's going back and forth. I'm thinking maybe that's right, maybe it's not right, but you'd hate for something to come down on a kid or something if it was slowly loosening over time. So just to have eyes on that was the only really one that jumped out to me as more of an immediate thing to take a look at.
I was trying to think of just something that would be safety as well, and I don't recall anything that was safety related. So yeah, just more general like things to note, to be worked on over time, or to be, even with all this talk of like the speed limits and the speed bumps and stuff, like I would really hope that this would play into like an even bigger pedestrian safety plan. And just, I noticed as I was driving around, trying to locate the parks, or just as I drive around in general, like our signage is so inconsistent, like the size of it, how things are worded. I would, not only just for the parks themselves, but I would love to see consistent speed limit signs and, even looking like, as I'm going around, like, okay, here's the speed limit sign, but it's this far from the park. Is that, what's the right spacing for that stuff. And I don't know if an overall traffic study has ever been done. I think more it was just kind of as issues were brought up, you know, it would get addressed by whoever was there with whatever sign they came up with at the time. But I've seen even at the school bus stops, they're all different. So I would love to see just consistent traffic signage, the way they look, and also like where they're placed. Some roads have none. Some roads have them every 10 feet. It's just.
And I feel like, for me, my personal opinion is if we are having playgrounds that we're maintaining and trying to draw kids to go and be there, then we should have like a 15-mile-an-hour sign and the one that says slow children at play, like probably at every playground. Like, I think that's pretty reasonable because people drive fast on these roads. And maybe it doesn't need to be in every park area, especially any ones we can't even find, you know. But if we are having playgrounds where kids are walking down these roads with no shoulder to and from, you know, to me, it's reasonable that we sign those at specific miles an hour, like 15, and have that kids at play sign or whatever, and that be consistent.
I agree. I think if you just even started at the playgrounds, maybe add in the beaches too, because I know those are ones that people walk to a lot. Yeah, just consistent signage there. Then I think that makes sense. So Sam, my hope was with these that he probably disappeared. Are you still there, Sam, or did you have to go take care of something? Okay, well, I'll talk to you later.
I'm still here. I was just texting a employee back.
That's okay. It's okay. I know you still have stuff to do. So my hope was just that we have this, we've all kind of walked through it and agreed to it. And then I know we kind of started out this year with that punch list that Maddie handed over to you, and that you can kind of take this and add these things, you know, as you talk over them with staff, add the things to be addressed.
Totally.
To the punch, to that punch list. And then that Parks Master Plan is a staff owned document. So I don't know where the original of that is. And so where there were differences in what was shown previously. And so that at some point, probably not right in pool opening time, but when you have some time and to go and like update that. And so then we'd have a new updated master plan, and, you know, you can use this information. So rather than you having to go out yourself and get all that information, I was hoping to be able to provide that to you so that to save some time, even though I do think you should go look at some of these parks when you have a chance, because they are awesome.
I think, you know, as I'm looking at your screen of Arrowroot there, that would be cool to have as a trail. And the one or two times I have walked up there, there's like beer bottles broken and things. So I think if it were maintained as a trail and marked as a trail that people use, it probably keeps some of the riffraff sort of stuff out from going on in there, where it's kind of now it's just kind of a shady spot to go hang out where nobody can see you, you know, kind of a thing.
Well, and I was thinking, you know, it's probably a decent emergency exit route. I mean, even if there's a little tricky spot you'd have to get through with cars, but if it was maintained a little bit, you might even be able to drive a car down it if there was like a serious emergency situation. Nobody's, I mean, like a major, like, but even for on foot, I know the Trails group was kind of working with the county and trying to identify some of those, because it gets you pretty quick down to like almost the bottom of Sudden Valley Drive. So, yeah, but it is fun to walk back there, but it's also a little, but there's some trees that have fallen over the road and stuff. It's definitely not anywhere close to drivable now, but it is a cool little area. So if there aren't any more questions or discussion on this, and thank you all for going and doing all that. I know it's takes some planning to get yourself out there to look at the parks and then get it all written down, but I appreciate it. I was going to switch over to this capital planning document. And so this is the old one from 2019, but on sheet 2, if you go in here. So I think we were all at the last Parks and Trails Committee meeting, and Glenn came and talked about kind of their planning process and their budgeting process. And the thought was that the next meeting we would kind of come and talk about some of our priorities and goals. So this is just stuff that we have already talked about for the most part. This one that was on sheet 1 was what we, as the subcommittee, sent over, and the committee talked about it too, but we sent it over to long range planning, and it was a little bit more detailed, but we had like specific years for various parks, and we tied it to their asset number and the reserve study. It didn't seem to me that Glenn was looking for something that detailed, and I would be happy if he was like, here, we want it in this format, be happy to change it. But I just wanted to document a lot of the ideas and things that we have talked about over time. So as far as capital improvements, talking about the marina with the off-leash fence, replacing some charcoal grills and picnic tables that were on that peninsula area that got taken out when they did this soft shoring. For planning and budgeting, making sure that Treehouse Park is included in there, including the removal of hazardous trees, and then any reports that we need to do that, bat habitat reports or whatever. And I just wanted to keep the tennis courts, you know, on our radar. I think they were going to come back and kind of give us a better idea of what they thought was feasible and cost effective for repairing the tennis courts, but I just wanted to keep that on there. So that was in the as soon as possible, or 1 to 3 years. And then for 3 to 5 years, this is something we haven't talked about recently, but it has been talked about, is just an overall analysis of the marina, the whole area itself. It's used for so many things. It's an off-leash area, it's a picnic area, swimming area, kayak launch, you know, boat launch, and it can get pretty congested, and so I think it would be great to just have an overall, well, there's tennis courts and pickleball and tons of stuff, which is great, but just an overall look at it and make sure we're using the space to get the best, you know, members satisfaction, I guess. Then I put in here covered basketball court or play area. That's been talked about a lot with our committee and the community. Pump track, I don't know if this is one. I think we've touched on it before, but I tossed it in there because I know that it's something that gets talked about a lot. We're right here at the base of Lookout Mountain. There's tons of mountain bikers here, so I think it would be cool. So I went ahead and added that one in here. And then operations or programs, non-members paying for parking, which we've talked about a ton for parks. Improved traffic signage that we just talked about. Swim lessons, swim team, and water aerobics, which comes up a lot. And then for the 3 to 5 years, I just tossed it in there, just increased opportunities for youth sports and leagues. So I just wanted to introduce that and then see if you guys had anything that you're like, no, I don't think we should have that on our list, or anything you thought we should add. Certainly, I don't think that we've ever looked out 5 years plus, really, at least not. I'm trying to see how far we went out here. 2024 was what we had in the previous one. So I went ahead and put that in 3 years for the updated one. And I didn't have anything at 5+ years. It's hard to think forward that far when there's still so much to do now, I guess. So I just wanted to open this up for discussion. Yeah.
Well, I just would like to say, you know, looking at all these things, we really need to fix Treehouse Park. Like, it has been just left and ignored for years.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's a lot of obstacles in the way, like the trees, the hazard trees, and what to do about them, because you can't really renovate a park that's surrounded by trees that are going to fall down on it, you know. But I also know if I was a homeowner and that was the park next to my home and I'm seeing it literally rotting away and suddenly not doing anything about it, that's not going to feel very good, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just advocate, as we have been able to really renovate and take a deep look at these parks with the funding through the special assessment that pays for this kind of stuff, that we just get something happening for Treehouse. And I know, Sam, it's a bigger conversation than our subcommittee or committee even, because to take care of those hazard trees is going to require a lot of board movement and probably permitting and things like that. But it's just such a shame that essentially the park has just gone just that's disrepair that people don't hardly use it. You know, it has been a really cool park, and it could be again. So that would just, as I look at all those things, that kind of sticks out in my mind as like, please, you know, let's get something happening there.
You know,
Yeah, I agree.
I didn't see Treehouse Park when it was nice because I wasn't here, but I've heard stories about how nice it was and how sad it is that it's no longer nice. I can second what you're saying. I think that would make a big difference.
I agree. I probably should have put it first. Maybe I'll switch it around when we're done with this, although I do really think that some sort of barrier fencing in the off-leash area, but that wasn't a very expensive project at all. But that's just been a long time coming. We've been talking about it for several years. But as far as like budgeting and planning for next year, I think that Treehouse Park needs, even if it's just getting it moving, it's getting the trees taken care of next year so that we can, you know that we can refurbish the park. It's just been kind of in this spiral for several years, you know, and they originally applied for the permit to take the trees out. I think it was in 2018, 2017, maybe. And yeah, and things have come in the way, but it just has kind of it's just fallen through the cracks is what has happened. And it's really, really unfortunate because it was such a great park and it is such a great space because it's totally protected from the road the way that it is. You know, there's some negatives that go with that because it could be people's, but it's got, you know, a mixture of grassy areas and cool forest areas and yeah. So
you know, we could put swings in there. I mean, it could be a really cool park.
Yeah.
I feel like it fell into bad disrepair before we ever had parks money. You know, before it was this, you know, having this capability. So back then it was like, well, we can't fix any of the parks, you know, but now it's just, I feel like it's going to be such a big project that's kind of always kind of get pushed down the road. Like, oh, we can't deal with that. We can't deal with that. But I think we need to, you know, I really think we need to. And I know that, you know, over the last several years, we've tried to kind of do one big park refurbishment per summer. And you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but is that just coming out of the operational special assessment money, or is that coming out of separate capital? Because I know we don't have one planned for right now because we had thought we could do the tennis courts, and then that's kind of been in limbo on the fixing the surfacing of the tennis courts. So I don't know if you know, if we don't end up doing a big park refurbishment this year, if that's going to kind of make extra money available next year if we don't use up this money. So maybe it would be enough to do something significant at Treehouse Park next year. I don't know. I can't remember which pots of money that was coming from.
So most of it did come from this. So like Maple Leaf, Huckleberry, and Cascade came from the special assessment. That's how it was worded. And since those are done with our own labor, it's actually they're not super expensive. Cascade, I think we were able to utilize like old equipment that we had. And when they installed like the monkey bars at the barns, they were sent the wrong pieces and then they had extra pieces. And so they just kind of put it together. So there wasn't much capital type expenses in that one. And then the decision was made to go ahead and finish because the barns is used so much. And those borders were just falling apart and nails sticking out all the time, to go ahead and use capital funds to do that, plus finish the ground work, you know, the fall area for Tumbling Water Park, which was never done. So those were done in one capital request together. There is money in the reserve study for parks every year for a park refurbishment as well, but for like bigger things, like if we were buying equipment or but just because it's in the reserve study doesn't mean that it is approved. It just means that we are acknowledging that there will be some capital expenses related to parks in the future, which you're right. When Treehouse Park, I think there was probably no capital fund at the time, and definitely not even any parks funds. So yeah, so it's unfortunate that it happened, but that would be my big priority too for next year's budget, is to make sure that that at least the trees can get taken care of. And then you're right, depending on what happens this year, maybe we have a little extra out of parks to put towards it. Maybe it's a combination of, special assessment funds and capital, just depending on the nature of the work, I guess.
Did I read in something recently that we're contracting with a tree removal service now at Sudden Valley?
Yeah, well, we always were. We always, I mean, it required professionals, but yeah, so now all of our trees are done by Earthworks. So we have like a retainer, I guess, is what you
okay. I didn't know if that would somehow make it easier to get on someone's radar. I know there's ratings of hazard trees throughout Sudden Valley on green spaces and other, Sudden Valley owned property, but to make sure that the Treehouse Park hazard trees are on that list too. They probably already are, but just occurred to me.
It should. It's supposed to make everything much more efficient rather than bidding out for every single project. We already have kind of a bid, is the way that Susie explained it, which I think is really good. The sticking point with Treehouse Park right now is that when we applied for the permit, the county said something about a bat habitat, and I don't even know what that means. So, because there's the potential for bats, I guess it just takes an extra step, and it's figuring that out. So that is the main part that we're waiting on there with Treehouse Park, is to first figure out the bat issue and then be able to take out the trees and then be able to plan for the park. So yeah. Does anyone else have any ideas that you've thought of, or in talking with other community members you think we need to have on our radar? I kind of just like the idea of having, you guys probably noticed, like these working documents where we, get everything kind of written down and we can revisit them from time to time and adjust, and, so things hopefully don't get lost as committee members change and all of that, that we still have some amount of consistency. So that was my main goal in putting this together, is to just get ideas down that have been talked about for a long time and make sure we have it and we all kind of agree to it. And then, make sure that that staff knows so that they can budget appropriately for it, and it can get, taken up to the board if necessary. And so we can just keep continuing to make progress. Do you have any comments about it, Sam, or I don't know? Is this helpful to you, or is it not, or?
Yeah, this is super helpful to me.
Okay.
And I like that it's a living document. I can always look at it. So it just helps me keep everything in order. So for as a staff, yeah, it's super helpful. I feel like, yeah.
Well, and I think you could add stuff to it too, if you're just thinking, like it's all of us. So if you have ideas that aren't on here, but you want to work on them, or you want to be able to talk to us about them and just not like forget, because you're responsible for a lot of different things. So that can make it, you can kind of forget pieces of it, like now in the summer when you're super focused on pools, sometimes you forget about trails, but then it comes to the winter and it's like, oh yeah, we were going to do something about them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely. No, this is super helpful.
Good. And I know a lot of this has already kind of been talked about and worked on as well. It's just getting it written down.
Right.
All right. So that was all. I just wanted to go over that stuff, and yeah, I mean, just kind of get everything documented was the main kind of purpose for both of these things, is to just get it documented, and then we can work from there. So if there's no other questions or discussion, or we can open it up to anything else if you guys have other questions, but we can.
Can I just ask one thing, Karen?
Yeah.
I know we met with when the GM was in our parks meeting, he talked about, was he talking about working with long range planning kind of meeting? I'm trying to think about what he was saying for the forward planning process. Like, is there a parks component of long range planning that's already sort of thinking of ideas like what we have on this spreadsheet, or are we sort of the only ones in Parks and Rec that are doing that at this point, I wonder?
That is a great question. And I haven't followed long range planning recently, and maybe you have, Sam. I think that actually reminds me, back up. One thing I think we should do with this is look through the survey. And if there's anything that jumps out at us from that survey, is add that to this. But I know right now, one of the things long range planning is doing is the survey. And I think I might be interpreting wrong, more working on like a framework, which would be the thing that, you know, how we put together these capital plans, although they are working on a capital plan too. So I'm not sure, but that is what I personally would love to see, is rather than us here saying, okay, these are the things that we want you to pay attention to, is actually have the system in place where it's someone's more like asking us, like, okay, I mean, we did do it, and Sam, it kind of is like, okay, what's your priority? I want to know, but even a broader perspective of that, like looking forward beyond just the 1 year, but 5, is to say, okay, we need your list in this format or whatever. And, you know, and whether it's for, I don't know, surveys or just, however, I would love to see, it's almost like we kind of work as an island. And then if we want something to really happen, we have to kind of push it and push it and push it. And I would love to see a little bit more coordinated effort. So I am not totally sure what the end product will look like, but I'm hoping it's something that's a little bit more, and I know we're not the only committee that has ideas of like, things would be so much better if we did it this way, you know. Communications has that, there's a lot. Anyway, so I probably didn't even answer your question. I think I was
just trying to figure out if there's overlap, you know, if there's going to be a list like this from long range planning and going, oh, same ideas or different ideas, or, you know, what's their perspective on it. And I appreciate you mentioning the survey. And it's been a while since I looked at that, but I can't remember now if did they ask things like, what would you like to see that's not here already? Or if it was mostly like rating, you know, their use of current amenities, or
I think there was a little of both, if I remember. And I think they're getting ready to do another survey. And I don't know if it's a deeper dive into specific areas or if it's just getting additional data like on the same thing. So I'll be curious to see. But
if they are going to do another survey, it might be nice to kind of let them know about some of the ideas here, you know, so they could float those out there, or, you know, ask for suggestions or whatever to see what people are interested in. You know, like the pump track. I'm sure, I personally think that'd be pretty cool. You know, I think a lot of families would enjoy that. But put it out there to the community and see, you know. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, exactly.
The whole area where the barn was taken down and it's just fenced off. That's I don't know, grand scheme of things, if something else is going in there, you know, eventually or what, but it seems like there should be something that can be done.
I have an idea for where the pump track can go, I think. I'm wondering if it can work in that old stable park that was once upon a time a park. It's a flat area. And from the other side, we own, Sudden Valley owns a bunch of lots across from the mailboxes on Sudden Valley Drive. I don't know if it's feasible or not, but it's a big open flat space and there's a potential for some parking over there maybe, but it's also kind of in people's backyards. So that's tricky, but anyway, but you're right. Also the barns, if that building can, so all of these things kind of like work, you know, as we're thinking about like, okay, well, what do we do down at the rec corridor? Depending on what that plan is, might open up opportunities for other things that we've been talking about, whether it's a basketball court or, you know, and like the garden. And I wonder if so like when the community garden went in down there, like right by the golf course, and like, I never really would have thought of utilizing that space for anything, you know, and I wonder if there's other like pockets around there that like, I don't know, just.
Yeah, I know over by Area Z or I'm not familiar enough with some of those places.
Right.
No.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I know Adam's not on this committee, but when we talk about this subcommittee, but when we talk about things in the broader committee, I'm assuming that he also brings those up in long range planning. And when he first joined long range planning, I think it was like they kind of created subcommittees of long range planning that mirrored all of the committees, which ended up in a little bit of redundancy, but they were supposed to be kind of like feeding information in about that. And I'm not sure what the current structure is, but yeah. But we have it here and Sam has it. So if he ever needs to reference the priorities, he can just send it off to people. So. All right. Anything else?
Thank you for all your work on this. I do think it's really makes a huge difference to have everything written down and yeah, a document to go back to.
I hope so. We've made a lot of progress since 2018, but I hope we continue to, you know, I think I mentioned this to Glenn, maybe I mentioned it in the other meeting. I can't remember when I said it, but we've kind of done all the easy stuff, like all the low hanging fruit, you know, like just, oh yeah, just go fix Maple Leaf Park. And it's just, and so now everything that we want to do is a little bit trickier. It has either issues that need to be worked out first, or it depends on other factors, what we can do. So I know the progress will be a little bit slower, but I hope we continue to make it. So that's the hope. I guess I can stop sharing. Anyway, if there's no other questions or whatever, I guess I should ask, what, as far as the next meeting, well, and I'll give you a heads up. So Andrea, that kind of oversees the marina, she had asked if maybe we could help a volunteer effort to do some, I don't know, do some work, weeding and just things down at the marina. And she was going to get a list to me. And so I don't know, it's not really ready to go, but that might be one thing where we can kind of help. It'd probably be a combined effort with all the subcommittees, so the whole committee, but help get some volunteers to go. But other than that, I don't know what any urgent things as far as like a next meeting. So do you guys want to schedule one, or do we want to just, I think what we did last time is let's just see, wait and see when we feel like we need to meet again. I'm kind of curious to see after the next meeting and after the budget, you know, the budget starts getting talked about, if that will kind of give us some direction as far as the subcommittee and what we should be focusing on or what we need to do. So what are your thoughts on scheduling a next meeting? Should we do it? Should we just kind of wait and see where we are? I think we have a full committee meeting scheduled for later this month.
Mm-hmm. I think, well, just, I think we should wait and then,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good with that. This was the big thing that I wanted to get done, get everything documented and discussed and agreed to. So I'm pretty comfortable with where we are now. There's plenty of stuff to be worked on. And then maybe just as volunteer opportunities come up, we can communicate either via email or call a meeting if we feel like we need to. And Sam, also feel free to reach out if you know, if there's something that you're like, I could really use some volunteer help or some, you know, you just kind of want to talk something through with us. We're happy to meet with you, or you can email us or whatever if you want. So
I'm also happy to just meet as you. Oh, sorry, Sam. Go ahead.
I was just going to say thank you, and I will be soon. I know we're going to be planning 4th of July up until, so volunteers will be huge.
Okay.
Yep, I'm all about not just having meetings for the sake of having meetings. So let's wait until we need a meeting and then we'll have a meeting.
Yeah, I'm the same, but I never want people to feel like they're left out of the loop or they're don't know what they're doing, whatever. So anyway, yeah, most things, like if it could be an email, I'm happy for it to be an email, but sometimes it is good to get together for a meeting. So with that, I guess we'll go ahead and adjourn and be looking for, I think it's the end of June, we should be having a full committee meeting. I think it's the 29th, maybe. So just be looking for that, and then we'll kind of go from there. I'll probably send out an email afterwards and just see where you guys are at, if we thought there was any follow-up from it, and we'll